Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. I am, at long last, reunited with my long-suffering co-host, Justin Curry.
I was here for the last one, wasn't
I don't remember anymore.
I? Okay.
Known the world over as Chasing Artwork. We have just returned from the dust and detritus of our home show, the Manitoba's greatest, biggest, most spectacular comic show, the Winnipeg Comic-Con. If that felt like I was casting shade on you, Brandon, it's because... oh, no! Icon. Well, no, but this is a comic show. We all have said Icon is our favorite local show. We've gone on record, but this is the biggest local show.
So you don't like Prairie Comics? Why do you hate Prairie Comics?
This is like that meme where the guy's like, do you want to give $1 to save a dog? And you say no. And then it says, so you want a dog to die? I'm in one of those traps right now. So let me just get the ranking before I introduce our proper guest so I can stop talking to you, Justin.
Okay.
All right. So the biggest, bestest show for booth size and build up, because I've been doing it for more than 10 years, is the Winnipeg Comic-Con. Right? It used to be the C4 show. It's been taken over by the Winnipeg Comic-Con people. And it's the one where the majority of people who have been harassed by me in some public event, or if I've shown up at a school, or I've done some talk, they come, that funnels to this show. The most community-minded show that's interested in building local talent and startup is for sure the Prairie Comics Festival. The one with the most passionate volunteers and perhaps runs the smoothest from start to finish is for sure the Icon show here in Winnipeg, I think. Am I mischaracterizing any of that?
No, that sounds about right.
All right. So now that the legal disclaimer is out of the way and I haven't been thrown under the bus yet again by my co-host, we would like to introduce to you, dear listeners of Super Pulp Science, Hugh Rookwood. Welcome to the show.
Woo! How's everybody doing? But before I start, I just want to say the opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of everybody of this podcast. Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
We might have to take that clip and use it
Can we
over
use that
and
forever?
over.
That's what I'm saying. You have to say it like really serious. Like the opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Chasing podcast. Thank you.
Oh my God. Can you do that again and say Super Pulp Science?
Super Pulp Science. Okay. The opinions expressed are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Super Pulp Science.
Oh my goodness. We are using that forever. Dear listener, this is where it happened. You heard it here first. I heard it here first.
Glad I could contribute.
So, speaking of contribute,
I'm scared.
right? Hugh's list of bona fides include publishers such as Oni Comics, IDW, Image, Ablaze, Aftershock, Archie Horror, Marcosa, Antarctic Press, and MFKZ. Why don't you tell us some of that work? Tell our dear listener who may have never heard of you what you do and how you do it.
I can't because those are all lies, and I just want to say goodbye and thank you for coming out. No, I'm a freelance illustrator. I have my own studio called Chosen Studios. I've been a freelance illustrator since 2009.
You've been full time since 2009?
No, full. But I've had Chosen since I was half and half.
Yeah.
2009 is when I did the the first manifesto.
Oh wow.
We have the same.
2008 was
year
my
in
very
comics.
first convention. Yeah.
That's right.
We're all coming up together,
right.
or we're
Yeah.
falling down together. One of the two.
Do you know I don't think I've ever called Justin.
No,
I've always called him Chasing.
There's a number of people who are, I think, pretty convinced my name is Chase.
Yeah.
So.
I just call him Chasins. Yo, Chasins, what's up? I don't think I've ever called him Justin.
Dear listener,
I hear everybody else say Justin, but I've never called him Justin.
so if there's two things you want to do to really kind of stick it to Justin at a show, you can point at a Gundam and call it a Transformer.
Oh.
Right? Or
Don't mess with
you
this
can
guy.
refer to him as Chase. So anyone who wants to come up and say, Mr. Chase,
Don't call him Chase.
can I have a transformer?
It's Chasing.
Right? That would be
It's
great.
different. Chasing.
I feel like that's just good branding.
It is.
It is good branding, honestly. And I have to say, my branding has improved immensely. Like my actual focus on creating a brand and having a recognizable icon and all the other things that go along with that have improved because I've watched Justin, who has that training, use it with some laser efficiency.
Thank you, Red River College.
Yeah. So
Class of
definitely,
2007.
most
okay,
definitely.
so you're a freelance illustrator,
Yes,
and
sir.
as somebody listening to this, and many of the dear listeners are either working in comics or wish they were working in comics or are wondering how they can escape the doldrums of their day job, which they are listening to this podcast in, and break free into freelance illustration. You said in 2009 you made the leap.
Mm-hmm.
I want to talk about before that time.
Okay.
All right? Tell me about what you were doing where the lever in your brain was like, F this, I'm going to make comics.
Well, at the time, I was working at a physiotherapy, clinic, and also was working at Premier Fitness, and I was training people at the time. Drawing had always been something that I was going to do eventually. I was with a few studios at the time, the last one being Draxall Chunk with Ken Lashley. And that was an amazing experience. And we were doing things like Wetworks and Magic the Gathering and Pit
You worked on
One Shot.
Wetworks?
Helped to do some finishes and stuff like that. Never got credited though, because we were like the sort of lower
Assistants,
low
yeah.
mid and on the rung. But you know what I'm saying? Respect due. It still was an experience to be able to work under a professional artist.
And for the dear listener, this is important to know that finishing artists or people who do flats for colors, there are plenty of, and in fact one of them is unnamed but working over there in the studio. There's someone who has done many of flats for DC Comics who has been uncredited because that's part of how the game is played. There's a certain amount of work that has to be streamlined, and so assistants will prep it, and then the finishes, the flourishes, and the stuff that makes it an artist sometimes come into finish.
And back then too there was a lot of turning out stuff, and sometimes an artist would be like, okay, this guy will do some breakdowns, and okay, have some guys, okay, finish that, so it was really cool. We were also just doing toy designs and stuff like that, Hasbro, Mattel, stuff like that. So I got a real taste of doing all of that stuff. And then when I left, and then I was with Cosmic Productions for a long while, and helping them. They were a startup at the time, and just helping them to produce stuff.
Were you doing Comic-Cons on the side at this point?
I was always doing Comic-Cons from like way back, Fan Expo. I remember before it was Fan Expo, and when it was just in the hotels. And one little hotel
And when people
room.
actually sold mostly comics.
Yeah, and we had these little printed ash cans that were like, you go to the photocopy shop and the Kinko's, and you would go late at night and you would photocopy and then get it stapled and folded, and like, would you buy my ash can?
Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower! Mayor Wilson is sponsoring an initiative to replace that clock.
I have a general historical question that I'm sure the internet could look up, but it's only occurred to me now. So, like in comics, dear listener, what the rest of the world calls zine culture, comics co-opted and called it the ashcan, essentially, which is a small, DIY version of what will one day be some bigger thing. And I guess maybe, and the ashcan, I know that the term comes from the fact that you used to do sometimes breakdowns on a little folded 8.5 by 11, and you usually throw it away. So hence the ash can. It's in the size that you'd normally throw away, right? And in the cigarette, like where you dump out your cigarettes. But why do you think that comics, which is not normally a place where you try to pull up your pants and act too much like the big boy, why did they have to change the name? Why couldn't they just call it a zine and be happy with it?
I have no idea.
All
I know is with ash cans. I mean, you're talking about back in the days to go to print. To make something like $5, you had to print like 25,000 of them.
Yeah.
So nobody could afford that coming up. So if you had your own little story or something and you wanted to get it out there, you draw it and stuff, and you go to the photocopier and you would copy company, Kinko's, whatever, and you would you print and you make your little books and you try to sell them, and you sell them for $2-3, and it was a way to get out there, and some people would support you. Hey, I like this, let me check it out, pay a little $2-3 and make a little something, and it would be cool. But you would be getting yourself out there as an independent, and that's how
and getting
it.
that all important feedback on how the story comes together.
Most
People open
definitely.
it, they look at it. That's how I started, was working after hours at a print shop, making them myself, folding it myself, trimming it, everything, and getting it into people's hands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you'd probably have the one colored paper that was the cover, so that it would look
Oh my goodness.
interesting.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And everything else was black and white inside, right?
Yeah.
A little bit
The
thicker,
days of
glossy.
cutting with the letra-tone to give different tones of the drawing
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
We still have some of that in the
I
background
know.
somewhere.
Yeah, we got
Oh
some.
yeah, that's gold. Don't lose that. That's gold.
Okay, so you're working for another company, you're doing finishes, you're doing layouts, you're doing some toy stuff, you're doing some licensed stuff. This actually helps me understand the pedigree of all these licensed properties that you then get your hands on, because you're not nervous about playing in someone else's toy box and giving it your own flair.
Well, I think everybody who does this should be the goal, to give it their own flair.
Yeah.
When you're doing this, I think that's where the uniqueness of you is supposed to come on.
Yeah.
Right? If you're just doing what the next man's doing, that's which you see a lot of people doing.
Yeah.
It's not, to me, it's just like, there's no originality to that. I look at you and say, yeah, you can draw, but you draw exactly like the next man there. There's a difference between influence and doing something exactly
That's
like
right.
the next
An
one.
imitation.
Everybody will have some kind of influence. Oh, this guy, you know what I'm saying? You might see a little bit of something from someone else, but in the end, it should be you.
Okay, so what are your influences?
Oh boy, you start from my life drawing teacher, and
Keep going. Who was your
keep
life
going.
drawing teacher?
My life drawing teacher was Warner Zimmerman. He was a medical illustrator.
Ooh.
Oh.
This guy was
So he knew it inside and out.
Yeah.
as they say.
literally, this
Yeah.
guy could. Jeez, this guy was one of them God hands with the pencil.
Yeah.
Like this guy could just. And when I tell you, sit down here and draw you exact. I'm just like a photo, like just. And when I'm telling you, just exact, like all the proportions and perspective and the way the muscles are twisted, the way the folds are, like, just he was one of those guys for me, and then also my layout teacher and stuff like that, and animation and stuff. They were just like phenomenal guys. Like it was just, cut from a different era, man. And it was just like, it was just phenomenal to watch this guy work. And so when you're talking about my formal training, in just as an illustrator, I always go to those guys. And then when you're talking about my comic books, you might as well just start from Kirby and go up, Jack Kirby and go up. Just, Jack Kirby, start going up. And then when I got to work with Ken Lashley, I got to work with a beast. He's a monster. He's he's really, really good.
Dear listener, I wish you could see the expression on Hugh's face.
Yeah, he's one of those. He's where the wild things are. You know what I'm saying? I went through the little doorway and it's like, went to the land of the monsters, and I got to work with him, Christian Zanier, another just, woo, you know what I'm saying, beast.
Could I
John? Yeah,
Jump
sorry.
in.
You want to go?
No.
I wanted to ask about like the practical skill set. Like you obviously started traditional. Are you still mostly traditional? Are you working digital? Like
I'm
what was
both.
that
I'm
evolution
both.
like?
I'll tell you, I stayed away from digital for a long time,
Yeah.
which was to my detriment. I'll tell you, because it's me playing catch up, but I had to. It was just one of those things. It was literally came to a point where it was like do or die. It's either you're going to start to muck with this stuff, or you need to just give it up because the industry's changed.
Yeah.
Like it's always changing, and so I had to say, okay, I better learn how to do this. And so I started really mucking with Photoshop and stuff. And I still have some of that old stuff that I'll never show. It's mad trash. It's mad.
But like you just
trash.
dived in and
Had to
self-taught
just
and
literally, like, God bless to my boy Marvin Mariano. He, I was ready to give up. I'll be honest with you. I was ready to like put it down. I was like, I don't think I can do this anymore. Like I don't. And he bought me my first Cintiq. Surprised me one day, and he took me down and he said, "Hey, buddy, I got something for you.
Wow.
I believe in you. I don't want you to stop. Bought me my first 17, and he's my brother for life. Like, you know, and I mucked with that, and I literally would have the iPad beside me, have some guy on Photoshop teaching some kind of Photoshop thing, and watching him and trying to do it. That's really how I learned.
Remember that first moment in Photoshop when you realized the layers should be
Oh my
separate?
God.
Oh yeah, it's like the lines are missing, and I was like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And
Yeah.
I didn't even look when I first popped that thing. I didn't even know what the eye meant. I was like, "Why is this thing looking at me? Why is there an eye on this? Why is there an eye? Like, why is it looking at me?" You know, I didn't know nothing, like absolute nothing, and I went from, you know, not knowing nothing, and I'm pretty all right now.
That
Like,
program is not an easy one to dive into.
No.
Like those first couple,
man.
those first probably 10 to 50 hours in Photoshop
Yeah.
are frustrating.
They're Byzantine.
It takes
Yeah.
a minute. It takes a minute.
Yeah.
But you know, I got more and more, but I was blessed because, like you guys in your studio setting, I was working in a studio, and even though I wouldn't muck around with it, I would watch, and like my boy Marvin, he and Christian Zanier, like these guys were just doing stuff in Photoshop that was just blown, and they were doing it back when it was on a mouse.
Yeah.
You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Oh.
And they were just doing phenomenal stuff and always
And
playing around with it.
And when the mouse had that huge, thick, heavy button.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's all you'd hear all day. As they're going around. You know, but
That's the lasso tool for those.
yeah,
of you.
that's the lasso
Yeah.
tool, you know. But I'll tell you straight, like watching them, I remember when I started mucking around and I would fall into some problem and I was like, okay, how do I approach this? And it was no word of a lie. It was like a little man up here on my shoulder. One of those guys like, hey, try this, try that. Like I would go back to something when I think I remember when they were doing something similar, and I think he pressed this button and did this, and that really how I started to, that's how that works, and then muck around with it more. Got
Yeah,
comfortable
here
and
in the
stuff
studio,
like
I think
that,
a
so.
cool part of it is that since Justin's working mostly in vector and I work mostly in raster when we're doing digital stuff, we can't do the same skill set. So instead, you're trying to achieve the same result differently.
Yeah.
Right, and so it gets our minds working in a different. He would be like, "Oh, well, I would just do this and resize it infinitely because it's vector." What do you? And I'm like, "Well, okay, I can't do that, but I can add all this noise, all this gain, all this stuff. I can do things that, you know, he has to come into Photoshop. He has to come into my world, in order to
I think
get
it's
right.
worth noting too, like as much as we both use Photoshop and Illustrator and InDesign, we're using like a fraction of that program. Those programs are such workhorses. Like the amount of stuff they can do is just phenomenal. And us as illustrators, like use just a tiny little piece of it.
Very, you know, like if you're going to be a photographer, it's a whole nother set of
Yeah.
things that you're doing. If you're going to, like, it's just Photoshop, like you said, Photoshop.
You can animate in it.
Oh my God.
It's got a timeline feature. Do you know about
man.
this?
The creative suite is just, you know, you could sit there for years and years and years and still never know everything. It's just that phenomenal.
This is truly amazing. A portable television studio. No wonder your president has to be an actor. He's got to look good on television.
So since you can never know everything, you have to double down on what you want to do. Okay, so some of the things that you clearly want to do are create artwork, your own take on some classic characters. Like when we go through that list, Oni, IDW, Image, tell us about some of the characters that you've been able to draw on the covers of comics, available in comic stores, the world over.
Well, they're variant exclusives, so they're not in comic book stores per se. You have to order them like through like Big Country Comics and stuff like that, or directly through me.
So retailer exclusives,
Yeah,
and
retailer
convention
exclusives and stuff like that, except for a couple other stuff. But you know, so you know, I got to do like things like Archie Horror, and when I found out what Archie Horror was, I didn't even know there was an Archie Horror.
Or isn't there like a Predator crossover at one
Well,
point?
they have Jughead as a werewolf, and Veronica as a vampire, and
the Archie Horror line is spectacular.
yeah, it's
kind
like,
of random.
It was wild, but it was like, you know, I got to do that. And I like to do things that I don't normally get or understand because it pushes the pen.
It really does.
It really
man.
does. I like to. So when I did like Archie Horror, they said, "Well, Hugh, would you do Archie Horror?" And I'm like, "What's Archie Horror?" You know, and a lot of times that's the conversation. Like, Hugh, do this. What's that? You know what I'm saying? So it was like, "What's Archie Horror?" So I said, "Okay, it's cool." And then I'm doing Archie Horror, and it was like, okay, well, I'm looking at what other people have done on it, and I'm like, okay, well, I know Archie and them, and they're cheerleaders and stuff like that. I'm sitting there looking at what everybody else has done. I said, okay, what am I going to do different? And I said, what I'm going to do? I said, I'll do Veronica, but I'll put her in a goth style, cheerleader suit, because she comes from a vampire line, right? Still the classic, Riverdale, so the R, use the classic Riverdale R, but she'll be in a goth outfit. So I designed her in a goth outfit.
No, you've shared the guest row with Dan Parent a bunch of times. Have you shown him your version?
No, I've never. You know what? That's funny. I never have. I should. Thank you. Thank you.
He's
I just saw him this weekend, and I didn't ever think to go. Maybe I should give him one.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, Dan," boom. But yeah. So just things like that. Where it kind of gets you to push. When I did IDW Transformers Back to the Future. I'm a big Transformers fan, but then it's like, and I like Back to the Future, the movie. Now here they have like these two properties combining, and now you have to create something where it's like the DeLorean is a robot called Gigawatt, and then how are you going to get the Transformer feel still, but then have the funness of Back to the Future.
I didn't know that was the premise of that crossover, and now actually, at first I was like, I don't know how do those fit, and I'm like, wait, the DeLorean was the Transformer.
Yeah,
great name, Gigawatt. Come on,
Gigawatt, right? Yeah. Exactly, right. So that was a fun one to do, and
it's a lot of pressure for that one. Transformers and Back to the Future.
It is most definitely. Like and Transformers, like you go up on those properties. It's just like, and you get a chance to draw a robot, you're like...
Yeah.
Okay, so I have two questions. One is related to something that we just jumped over. You passed over because it's just normal to you. It's just an average day in Hugh's life, clearly. But you used the phrase, they told me, Hugh, draw this for us. Who is that in your life? How does that happen? To many people who are listening, their dream would be someone to knock on their door with a clipboard and say, you're good enough to do this, please do it for us. Who's arranging that? Do you have a person in your life? Is that you have an agent? Do you have just a studio mate that's got those connections? Do you have a business partner that helps arrange that stuff?
Well, yeah, there's a few different things, I guess. Like, connections through conventions is huge. I've made quite a few connections personally through conventions. When I do the sketch covers and stuff, that's my biggest has been through Big Country. And Justin Stevens.
So that's a retailer partnership.
There.
And they found you at a convention?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They found me at a convention.
For the dear listener, again, for someone who doesn't understand what we're talking about with the retailer, if a retailer is ordering enough of a Marvel book or a DC book or an IDW book, they can ask that company if they can pick an artist to do a book exclusive for them that's available only at their store, that then if they have a connection with that artist can sign, that artist can come to the shop, that artist can promo it, that artist can be at a show, and when they say, where do I find this, they get to name the shop. It's a great way for the local comic book store to have something that's unique to them, because the speculator market loves a chase item, a one-of-a-kind chase item. And then also it's a wonderful way for an artist to have a relationship with an audience that is all in one place, right? So then, and as a former comic book store owner, I can tell you how important it is. The store owner is a tastemaker in that place, and if they say, it's Hugh's book, and they say, who's Hugh? And they're like, well, let me tell you, right? That is a wonderful, just a perfect circle in the art world.
Yeah, you definitely want to go in and be building your relationships with with your comic book brick and mortars, man. Like, when things hit hard for everybody with the brick and mortar, and there's a lot of guys the guys who did survive, it's still tough, right? And so my whole thing is always about how can I give back? I try to do in stores. I try to, do things exclusives. I try to draw exclusives, particularly for that store. That is like, oh, you can only get it at that store. Anything to give back, because in the end, that's where it all you know, that's the house. You know?
That's where it started.
That's where it starts, you know, and if we don't support it and give it that energy, you know, it falls by the wayside, right? So I don't ever want to see that happen, you know.
So some people will talk about how the comic book world sort of is leaving young people behind, but not you. Why don't you talk about how you won the Children's Book Award in Alberta?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about that book. Talk about your illustration process on that.
Well, the first
Name
when
drop.
I came
Everyone involved.
When I came to Alberta, when I moved to Alberta and I moved to Airdrie, where I'm from, it was funny because the connection to Red Barn was actually through someone my wife met through like the babies, the kids being
wow. So not from a comic.
No,
like
not from a thing.
yeah,
Like just from like, you know, shared thing, right? And then it was
stroller
like
racing.
Then it was like, oh yeah, my husband's an illustrator. Oh, okay. So the first series, they went back and they were talking to Aisha Clow, who was looking for an artist to draw John Ware, the story of John Ware. So she had this story called Howdy, I'm John Ware. She was looking for an illustrator. I took on the job. And we did that. And it came out at Black History Month. And it ended up winning the Heritage Book of the Award and the Children's Book Year of the Award. Right? So that was nice, coming right out the gate and winning the award.
Was that your first kids book?
It wasn't my first kids book, but the first one that I've ever won like an award for.
Did you were you present for the award?
Yes, it was, and it was really cool.
How was that?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was like wow, okay, cool. Like, you know what I'm saying? I was just happy to do it because for me, anything to give back to the kids in any way, shape, or form for me is everything. Like, I mean, I like doing comic books. Don't get me wrong, but children's books for me was really and winning it and stuff like that was really something that was very like amazing for me because I feel like I left something that is, you know, going to be beyond me. You know what I'm saying? Some teachers can use to educate and stuff like that, and I've always believed in that. And, you know, so anything to give back. That's
very personally fulfilling.
Yeah,
and without hyperbole, when you're working in that field and the book is being read by a parent to a child, that's a core memory. They might not remember the book even. Yeah. Sometimes they'll remember the moment their parent read it, and then years later, the parent is gone. They find the book. They remember the whole thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, that's my hope that those things are doing that. So we came out now with Flores Howdy and Flores Ledoux, which was the second in the Howdy series. And this character is about the first woman trick writer, but she was also the wife of Guy Whittick, who is basically the guy who started with some other gentleman the Calgary Stampede, the biggest, you know what I'm saying? But she was very much involved in that also. But you know, women back in the days, they didn't get the props that they deserved. You know, they didn't get the shine that they deserved. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And so it was something to put a shine on this, you know, something for young ladies and also young boys to learn and understand that, like, yeah, everybody plays a part. Yeah. You know, so that was up for our Children's Book of the Year award, and I didn't know we would win it. Like, you know, I was like, okay, so went up to Edmonton.
So 2 years in a row?
It was not in a row. So it was 1 year, and then it was break, and then next year.
Nice of you to leave space for someone.
Yeah, so, give someone else a chance.
You know, but that was amazing. So we, it was like when they called me up, and it was like, called us up, and it was like, and the winner is, you know, Howdy, I'm Flores Ledoux. Yeah, I was like, oh, damn. We won, you know. Do you have a speech? I'm like, no. I had to go up there and go wing some stuff, you know what I'm saying? So, but I won it, and it was all good. But, yeah, so we won that. So, I mean, that was 2 under the belt. So I was really happy about that, you know. And, again, another great story. Aisha wrote a really awesome story, and just, again, something to give back to the kids, you know, like, you know, the Spider-Mans, all that kind of stuff, it's always there, and I know the kids are going to love those things and all that kind of stuff, but you know, anything I can do to educate and give back in that way, shape or form for me is just like, I'm good. Like if tomorrow was my last day, I'm all right.
Yeah.
No, I really do feel like that. I feel like I'm all right.
Well, I hope you have many days, but
Well, yeah.
About all that talk about screwing up future events, the space-time continuum.
Well, I figured. What the hell?
let's imagine though that a young person, right, is listening to this. Maybe they're stuck in,
people.
maybe they're stuck in the car with one of our dear listeners.
Sorry
right?
about that.
Yeah, and they're listening, and they're saying, I want to draw. I want to learn how to do that. Right?
Yeah.
Talk to those young people now. Tell them, because you said here, right here with us, that you almost tossed in the towel.
Yeah, but when I was coming up, it was a different era. It was really like self-publishing.
Not a thing.
Oh my God! I mean, it's not that it wasn't a thing. You had to have money. You really had to have money.
Yeah.
But now there's so many venues for you to go, and you know what I'm saying. Everything now is about your hustle.
Yeah.
And really, it's tough. It's tough to make excuses.
Yeah, like back in the day, minimum print run was like thousands.
Yeah,
so you
like
couldn't just do 100 or 200
to get it. I'll never forget, to get it to 500. You go to the print. Well, if you want it to be $5, I should say, you needed to print 25,000.
And God, have you tried to move 25,000 of anything?
You know
like
what I'm
that's
saying?
too many.
That's crazy.
That's too many.
That's crazy. But it was real.
Yeah.
So you if you're going to get into publishing, you really had to have your ducks in a row. Now, there's web comics, there's this, there's that, there's printing on demand.
You
there's
can print 50 copies and have it under $5.
Under $5.
Yeah.
You can print 10 copies. You can there's guys who will print 10 copies for you right
just
off
to
the
test
cuff.
and just to test it out. Yeah. See if people like it.
Exactly.
Technology has caught up to our wishes.
It's crazy. You know what I'm saying? Web comics, the whole nine. There's actually animation companies who are viewing web comics to see what the next idea is.
Yeah.
From Korea and Japan and all that. They're actually going through web comics and this actually might make a good concept, and then boom, boom, boom. If you can have 10 or 15 good issues down, they're looking at you.
Yeah.
They're looking at you and saying, hey, this is, has a good following. This is a good concept. Yeah, we can approach this guy and let's try to make a story, an animation from it. So, that's something that guys need to think about too. It's all integrated. It's all this now. There's no, I draw this and I'm over here. You draw that, you're over there. No, everything's integrated. Now when you're thinking about drawing, illustrating, if I want to illustrate comic books, I should be thinking about animation. I should be thinking about toys. I should be thinking about movies. I should be thinking about video games. It's all
on the table.
On the table.
Yeah, the way we think about it, because we do some work in film, television, theater, a little bit of game design, stuff like that. But the way we talk about it here is it's words and pictures.
That's it.
And it's just different amounts of each of those ingredients in each of those mediums. So if a producer comes to me and says, help me get my concepts together, well, it's some pictures and they brought the words.
That's it.
Right? And if someone brings me just an outline and they want me to write something and then add the picture, well, that's comics now. And if I want to write all words, right, with just one picture, well, that's a book with a cover now, right? It's just different amounts of ingredients, right?
That's it.
And you shouldn't try to pigeonhole yourself into one thing. And we say, the tagline of this podcast is join the fight, make comics. But for me, it's because if you can do words and pictures together, then you can actually get any idea you want across to somebody.
But I'll be honest with you. I couldn't have survived. I couldn't have survived this long if I was only stuck into one thing.
Yeah.
Like I had to be. I'm like, okay, comics is my love.
Yeah.
And I do comics also.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be, he only exclusively does comics. No.
Yeah.
I do comics also.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I'm a freelance illustrator.
Yeah.
So I illustrate. So you bring anything that to me that requires some kind of illustration skill and it's in my wheel it's done. Yeah. I've designed corporate logos, but I've also just done storyboards.
Yeah.
I've, helped to design characters for video games.
Yeah.
But I've also done covers and sequential artwork for comic books.
Yeah.
I've done children's books. I've done, pamphlets for, hey, buy this at the, what I'm saying, whatever festival.
Yeah.
It's just whatever requires illustrative ability that's what I do, and that's where I don't pigeonhole myself, because you know there's so many different doors to go through. So I've always focused on making myself versatile and being able to flip styles and do different things, because I never know what someone's going to ask me to do.
Right.
So when I was doing the children's book,
Yeah.
I had to come up with a style for the children's book. So I went through like 20 drawings and said, okay, here's some different drawings of how, and I went through styles, and I just did styles.
So people find it very difficult to switch styles, you know, and you're just, I'll just flip it like a switch in my hands and head.
Well, that goes back to your training.
Yeah.
You know, like if you don't have any training, then it's going to be difficult for you.
Yeah.
Because our training that we've had, they teach us the foundations of approach. You know, and those are things you can learn yourself. You can read and learn those things yourself. But if you're not taking the time to, you know, it's for me, I'm a very visual person, so I like the hands-on. Somebody's there showing me, hey, look. I like to look and visualize and see things. I'm a very visual person. But, you know, coming up with styles, you got to understand it. That's one of the great things about my life drawing teacher and stuff like that, was how to strip things down. My layout teachers and stuff, when I did animation and stuff, how to strip things down to its simplest form.
Yeah, you'll appreciate this story here.
And when you understand that, you know, you can do anything.
On that same topic, Diane Thornycroft was a illustration instructor that I had. I took was essentially it was called Fundamentals of Art. And she was a world-renowned professional artist who came in and did some teaching at the university, and I had some proficiency with drawing, shall we say. So I took this course while I was waiting to take other stuff. I had an opening, so I'm going to take this. I'm going to fill this. Literally the only class I ever took at the university for drawing, and I'm sitting there, and they put up a life drawing thing, and we're going to draw this still life, and I'm going as fast and as fun as I can be, and I'm making the marks, and I'm putting it down, and I'm blocking in the shadows, and I'm doing everything, and I've brought my weapons of choice with me, and so this is going to be fun, because I'll get to 3 hours a day. I'll be instructed by someone who really knows what they're doing, and I get to draw whatever, however I want. And she came in over my shoulder, I'll never forget this, and she said, wow, you really got this. And I was like, oh, thanks. Oh, shucks. I got this. Thanks. Oh, I'm going to be such a star in this class, right? And she said, okay, so tomorrow, don't bring any of these tools. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, you don't come to school to do what you already know how to do.
Exactly.
Right? And the next day, she gave me a stick, a literal stick, and a bowl of ink.
Yep.
And said, draw with this today.
That's it.
And I was pissed off. I was so mad until like hour 2, and I was like, oh, right, learning is important.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah. Learning and new things are important.
You looked at your work and went, ooh.
Yeah, learning is important, right? And that just shattered my idea that I have my way of doing it, right? There's lots of ways to do it. And that became a running kind of joke in that class, was anyone who had a style and seemed to like nail it, she'd like, okay, we're changing it up.
You need that.
Here's a sponge. Draw with this sponge, right?
That was my life drawing teacher.
Yeah.
My life drawing teacher, I'll tell you, I was in animation, and I was pretty good. I wasn't the best, but I wasn't the worst. And I come to life drawing, and I would come to life drawing, just same kind of thing, thinking I'm all right, I'm good. I come to my assessment, and I got a C- in life drawing. And I went, a C-? What the?
A C.
What the? So now you couldn't. Now let me. Now the thing in animation at the time, if you failed any one part of the course, you were out of the program. You understand? You were out of the program. You were on academic probation if the teacher felt you had potential, but you couldn't fail one part of the program.
You were done. So
life drawing was a big factor. So I'm like, what's going on? I got a C-. He goes, all he did was walk up to me. He goes, if I don't see a vast improvement in 2 weeks of the new semester, you're out of this program. and I was bricking. I'm running. Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! I'm running to every life drawing class. I'm running. I'm doing extra life drawing. I'm doing all this stuff, and he would just walk up to my table, walk up to where I was working my board, and go, "You're just not getting it."
Oh,
and
no.
he'd walk away, and I'm like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, and he'd do this, but I'm not even taking count of the time. 1 week passing, 2 weeks passing, 1 month now, 2 months. I'm not even caring about the time.
Yeah.
I'm just
'Cause you're
bricking.
just on the knife
Any
edge.
day
Yeah.
he's going to kick me out, right? Which is the drawing that's going to kick me out. So we have assessment. And I have my drawings on my table. And let me tell you, life drawings was like gold in school. People would steal other people's life drawings and use them at their assessments to continue the course. Well, I left my life drawing. I came back. They were gone.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm bricking. Oh my God. I run to the life drawing in the illustration. I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. Can I use your class? And so I'm this teacher's looking at me going, everyone's looking, what the hell's going on with this guy, right? I'm thinking I gotta get at least 10 pieces, right? I'm just going. So I come now to my assessment. So I'm sitting down. I tell you, it was like the 12 steps. I'm going through every emotion. Sir, I'm sorry. No, you can't fail me. It's not fair. Please, sir. Like, I'm going through every emotion, like every one of them. And he's sitting there smiling, laughing. And I'm like, oh my God, why are you laughing? Like, this isn't funny. This is my life. I'm like I'm completely, he broke me down. And he started laughing. He goes, man, don't worry about it. He goes, I handed your marks in 2 weeks ago. He said, I gave you an A+.
Hey.
And I was like, why would you do this to me? Like, why was it? He said, because I saw you had potential. But I knew that if I didn't push you, you would sit on your laurels and never improve.
Yeah.
And he said, a lot of these guys are in here, and he goes, yeah, I gave them A's or B's and stuff like that, but I know that's the extent of them. He said, there was something about you, no matter how much I pushed you, you got better. And I realized, oh, he's one of them students, I have to push him. And that's why I came at you the way I did.
What do you think you're doing?
Jeff.
Hey, I'm talking to you, McFly, you Irish bug.
I'm always on that humble.
Yeah.
People's, oh, I really love your work. Thank you, but
I can do better. I can do better.
There's always better. There's always more.
Yeah.
And that's why I never understand how people have this attitude like I'm the best, because if you have Instagram, that's where the wild things are, man. Like, have you ever seen, there's some little girl in the Ukraine drawing with her feet and half blind in one eye, and she's like doing like God level paintings. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you just like, oh my Lord, like, there's times like I have to really go, okay, Hugh, remember, like, you can draw too. Like, because some of that stuff makes me want to sleep sometimes.
If you're
like,
the best person in the room, you need to find a different
That's
room,
right. Always. I always say that. I said, if it's time to leave. I never want to be the best person in the room.
Yeah.
Ever. That you know what? If people are starting to get too comfortable with my stuff, it's time for me to improve.
Yeah.
It's becoming too common.
Yeah.
I need to push some which way, shape, or form. You know,
the Moon Patrol style, right? That I've been working on since pandemic, and I've got another book coming out in that style. People are like, "Well, why are you drawn differently for this than you do the other thing? Or doesn't that take away your brand? Doesn't that take away, why would you build all this up just to start from scratch again?" And it's just another language. I'm just,
that's it.
I only speak one language fluently, right? And maybe a little bit of asshole. That's about it. Those are the only two languages I sort of speak. But visually, I want to be able to speak more languages, so I'm trying to do some different things.
If you look at all my covers, if you laid out all my covers, you see a different style in every one of those covers. You're looking at the covers and you're like, and everybody's looking at the covers and they always say, well, who drew this? I said, I did. Well, who drew this? Well, I did. And they don't understand. And they're like, but how can you draw so many different ways? I said, because everything has a different feel.
Yeah.
I'm not going to force this to that, like putting the peg, the square peg in the triangle hole. Like, you know what I'm saying? No, you're trying to force something that, to me, that doesn't fit. I think you have to try to find the essence of what that feeling is and try to bring out that. Because if you're talking about line, and if you're learning about line, there's emotion behind line.
Yeah.
There's storytelling behind line. There's truth behind line. And if you understand line and what each line represents and what it feels, you should never really be drawing the same way completely for each and everything. There should be some sort of differentness. If something is soft, then your line work is going to be a different way from something that's hard.
Yeah.
Right? And if you want to represent hard, you have to understand how to represent hard through those lines. So my life drawing teacher was very much about line and understanding line weight and line emotion and all that kind of stuff.
It's also really neat, like seeing because we do like so many like in-person events with crowds, how the crowds react to certain pieces kind of dictates where you go from there, right? Like when I was starting out, I had a bit of a style in Photoshop. I was trying some like vector paintings. I had traditional stuff, and like I liked them all. I like doing them all.
And Justin's cartooning is awesome. It's tight. No, but he doesn't use it anywhere. He doesn't need to use it anywhere. It's just for himself.
But, and then, yeah, like seeing like, you know, you have hundreds of people interact with your work and they're all beelining for this one type of style or this one, like subject matter. And like, oh, okay, well, I like doing that. And it seems like this crowd really reacts to that too. So I want to do a bit more of that. And every year, like everybody at this table, we're all trying different things and it's kind of neat. Some things the crowd will agree with us, like that's amazing, you need to do more of that. And sometimes it's like, this was great for me, but nobody else seems to agree.
Yeah. Well, and one thing we were talking about just before we started recording was the idea that if all of us think our piece is awesome, the crowd never does.
That's true. That's very, very true.
Right? It's only the ones we have doubt. It's like there's some piece of it that's like, I wonder if anyone will like this. I don't know.
You know what's funny though? You know, sometimes it could be just also some pieces work better in some environments than others.
Yeah, totally.
Like I did a piece most recent, a little while back, a couple months ago. It's this Blade Deadpool piece where I have Blade and he's like just samurai chop Deadpool, like, you know, but it's a nice piece. I like it, and it wasn't really moving. You know, I might move one at a show, or I'm in an in-store event and I might move one. Yeah, and it's like, wow, man, like people not really gravitating to this. Then I came this weekend to Winnipeg, all gone.
Or sometimes like you didn't hit it quite right, so you'll take that piece and you'll just tweak it slightly. Like I'm gonna recolor it a bit. I'm gonna like change adjust things, and then suddenly it lands. Yeah,
you know, definitely.
Or like you say, different groups of people. You know, I think about it. So sometimes when people say like, what's the definition of art? This is the definition I usually provide. It's like what your job as an artist. Your job as an artist is to put an idea in someone else's head without their permission. That's your job as in your composition, in your layout, whatever you're doing. Get the idea into them, and then when you hear it back from them, you know if they got it right. And that's how you know. If you know what the idea you're trying to put into them, and then when they see it and you don't talk about the piece, you don't say anything about it, and they go, oh, this one makes me sad, but I don't know why. And you're like, that's it. That's true. Right? That's true. But ideas are flexible, and they change with sometimes the season. They sometimes change with the weather. They sometimes change with the political climate. And so even a certain compositional element, like Justin plays around a lot with this big versus small. Yeah, right? For sure. I think that this idea of like a little thing facing off against a big problem, well, that's all of us right now, right? That's how we all feel, and that people resonate with that even if they don't understand why.
Well, it's it's about push-pull. Always, for me. You're working on a 2D plane, working on a computer, you have the vastness of, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. The space, right? But when you're on a piece of paper, right, which most of my compositions start off on a piece of paper, you're just on a 2D plane, right? So then it becomes about push-pull. How am I going to get the eye to navigate in that 2D space, right? So like the Magneto you see on the wall,
dear listener, we have one of Hugh's pieces here that has been...
The emphasis is the hand.
Yeah. Judging us with its eyes for years.
How I push back, right? Yeah. To the farness of the part with the cape where it's more splattered out with the dot, but it creates that distance going back, right? It's just the way you get the eyes to move an S and C curve, an S curve around. You know, you have you move around a page, you can bring everything to a point, you can zigzag, you can arc, it's how it's the first and foremost when I do an illustration, I'm always thinking to myself, what's the story behind what I'm doing? Any illustration, what's the story behind it? What's the moment, right? I don't believe like I don't draw for say just to illustrate. I try to capture moments. That's how I look. So every time I draw, I'm always first and foremost in my brain thinking to myself, what's the moment that I'm trying to capture? What's the moment, And then I'll scenario run something in my brain. Like if it's a fight scene, I'll run a fight scene through my brain. I'll be there. Okay, in the fight, they do this, and they do this in my brain. Then all of a sudden, the camera freeze. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Boom, and then I go from there, right? But for me, it's about capturing moments because everything is energy to me. I feel like it's energy, and how you place your energy is what makes people gravitate to something or repel from something.
Just the attention, the amount of detail, the amount
so
of
it's
care.
energy. Sometimes if you're too busy, there's just too much. You have to know where to be subtle, know where to be, aggressive, depending on what it is that you're trying to do. And by doing that, you have to understand what is the image that you're trying to portray. And what are the elements in that image that are aggressive and what is toned down, what is smooth. What is the loving areas? What is the angered areas? Everything is emotion and energy. I really feel like that, So when I admire a work, or I look at Justin's work and I admire his work, I look at your work and I admire something, I'm always looking at the energy of it.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Oh, look at the energy. Look at the way he flew. Look at the way that flow. Look at how the negative and the positive of the dark, you're working a lot of heavy shadows.
Yeah.
Light and shadows, positive, negative.
Yeah.
Look at the way he's working in that positive and negative. Look at the way that comes out. You know what I'm saying?
I think of the black spaces,
Yeah.
like all the heavy blacks that I use or the big compositions. It's a place to rest.
Exactly.
And imagine. Because nothing holds more for your imagination than a dark shadow in a room, right? And so if I put enough of that in the composition, if I have a tiny sinister piece sort of poking out, but the rest is black, you imagine everything else about that.
But if you're delineating them spaces with black shadows, you do a triangle black, it's going to give you a different feeling from a rectangle black, from a circle black, from a, just depending on how you want the eye or the person to move within that.
And that's your animator training speaking right now, that shape language.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, again, where we got back to about people learning and young artists coming up and stuff like that. There is a lot to be said through instruction and getting knowledge from those who come before us. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a reason why we do the things that we do. There's a reason why it's the art form, and there's the reason why there's fundamentals.
You're instilling me with a lot of confidence, Doc.
Don't worry, I'll take care of ID. You just take care of your pop.
When we strip down everything to our base, right? When we're drawing, we strip down everything. It really goes right back down to the stick man.
Yeah, for sure.
Right?
We used to say in that class I was telling you about, we used to call it the that Diane would put the FU in fundamentals, right? Because she would just tear you down to your basics.
To the basics.
Draw with the stick. If you can draw with a stick, you can draw with anything.
Whenever I'm teaching, everybody always, I can't draw. I can only draw a stick man. Then I said, then you can draw.
Yeah.
What you don't seem to, what the problem is that you put the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
And you're thinking about the ripples, and you're thinking about the look how the logo says this. You're thinking about all the things that are cosmetic.
Yeah.
But when you're making the cake, you still need the foundation instructions. The icing and everything else is the cosmetic of it. So I'm not thinking of, when I look at you here right now, I'm not thinking about the shirt and stuff first. I'm thinking, okay, what's the structure? That goes right back down to the spheres.
My slender bird
and the
bones,
lines,
you can see right through
and all of that. And all of that.
Yeah.
And then the plus side on building up on that is when you know your mechanics of your bones, the mechanics of your muscles, the mechanics of all those things. And then as you build up that more and know how to relax the shoulder, because you know the way the muscle's twisting around, you know how it's coming off the scapula and twisting around the deltoid and come, you know what I'm saying? You understand those things. That's now where the proficiency comes in. And then now I can do that. Now I know how the ripple is flowing as it hits each aggressive break in your form and how it drops a certain way. Then all of a sudden now, that's the cosmetic. and then you're flowing through that. That's where you're finishing it off. But a lot of times people are thinking all of that stuff way too early, right?
You have to slowly unlock those skills. They take hours, they take mileage. I always pictured it as it's the translation from the image you see to your mind to what your hand is doing. And to pave that road just takes hours and hours of travel. And so when parents are coming with their kids or younger people are always asking, like, I want to be an illustrator, like, what do you recommend? It's always practice. This is the only trick worth remembering is practice.
There's no these guys, they always want like some magic bullet. Or
this
some
program,
magic jelly bean,
this brush set.
And it's like, I said, do you play hockey? Do you play basketball? Yeah. Well, how do you get good? Well, I practice. I said, it's no different than drawing. It's a learned skill. It's a practice skill. You have to practice. But your strongest line, the line that gives you the most energy is your gesture line. Yeah. And if you can gesture good, you will catch the best emotion. Yeah. And that's the line that's the most loose, messy. You're not even worrying about anything except catching the energy of the moment.
And if I put my art teacher hat on for a second, dear listener, right? Line gives way to shape in illustration. Shape gives way to form. Until there's form, you shouldn't be thinking about texture and color. You need to build from that.
Something in there too with like left and right side of your brains, right? As if you're doing the loose gesture and you're really not putting thoughts into it, it's your the right side of your brain. The creative side is driving a bit more than your analytical and so you're more animalistic about it and freeing up that.
And humans are emotional creatures. So if you're leading with your emotion, that form is going to echo in someone else.
That's how you should draw. That's how you should draw, is on emotion. Yeah. If I'm doing a battle scene, right, and I know it's going to be chaotic, you know what I'm saying? I might have Conan playing in the background, or I might have the soundtrack of Conan playing in the background, or I've watched.
I usually have the soundtrack of Conan playing in the background.
Kung Fu movies or something. I put my mind and my emotion in the action genre of things. Now, when I'm thinking, I got to do a really nice, scene between two people talking or something, like, I might put something on that's a little more subtle and just because as you watch film and stuff, you see certain things through angles and lighting and all those kind of stuff. And what's a great movie for that? You ever see Dark City?
Oh yeah, love Dark City.
Dark City
regularly.
That movie, especially, that movie hits on so many levels for lighting and mood and stuff. Like, it's just like, I love it. The way that the shadows are cast, the way that everything is slightly grayed out. Like, it's just like, I always look at that, and when I'm like, oh man, how could I reproduce that? How could I reproduce something like that to give that feel? But that's the power of it when you really understand the techniques and the mediums that you're working with. You understand? Yeah. And so when I tell people, when you draw, how do you get better? It goes back to all those foundation things we've all learned. You want to get stronger? Go back to the foundation. Make your foundation strong. You want to be better. You know what? I've hit that bubble. I can't burst the bubble. You know what? Strip it all back down. Go back to your foundation. Always. When I gesture, last thing. When I gesture, I'll just have a people. I warm up with gesturing. I'll just go like this, and I don't even care where the line's going. I'll just start doing this.
So my favorite,
and then all of a sudden build out of that.
My favorite warm up is if I'm going to a coffee shop or if I'm going to pick up some tea or whatever, I'll just sit for 5 minutes. I'll set a timer on my phone, and I'll try and do a gesture drawing of every single person in the place for just that 5 minutes. And it just loosens up my brain. And then I'll come and I'll work digitally. I'll do composition, I'll do collage, whatever when I get here, but it gets
There's
my
no
mind.
time for second guessing there. You
you
can't think about it.
Just
go.
So, dear listener, this has been Super Pulp Science. Hugh Rookwood has been here telling us and reminding us that you should be asking yourself, what is the story behind your art? He's been sharing with us the story behind his journey to become the artist he is now, and we cannot wait to see what is next on the horizon. If someone wants to track you down, where should they come looking for you?
Instagram, Hugh Rookwood Art. You can hit me there, or you can go to www.chosen, CHOZEN Studios, STUDIOS.com. And yeah, you guys can hit me up at those two places. Check me out there. Also, you can Instagram Chosen Studios also. And I'll just like to say, draw. 20 or 30 minutes a day. Stay in a super positive attitude. And I'll see you next time.
This has been Super Pulp Science. I am GMB Kamichik, encouraging you to join the fight and make comics.